Whiskey and Grit writes, I do sometimes wonder about Darkzay. I wonder what these videos would be like if you were more outwardly bitter, cynical, and angry. I have a dark part of me. It's called Damien Savage. I've called it that since I was a kid. What do you call the dark part of you? I'm traveling at the moment and I'm taking a bunch of steroids called prednisone, and it makes me a lot closer to that part of me, the Damien Savage part of me, all aggro. And it makes me sound like this. And on the way here, I sat in one of those planes that has the little TVs built into the back of the seats. And this lady that sat behind me thought maybe that the pressure in her fingers would somehow signal her intent. Tap, 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 and my head kept bouncing forward. And I'm sitting there imagining that she's tapping out "I'm an asshole" in Morse code onto the back of my skull. And I do that thing that you only do in airplanes and movie theaters. You sort of whip around and half stare at someone and hope that they get the message. But Tappy Lady don't give a shit. She's just pressing next channel with all the force she has in her scrawny little finger. And I'm sitting in the exit row and I fantasize that we crash on some desert island and I'm forced to rescue everyone. I always fantasize that. And there's one last coconut on the island and I get to divvy it up. I'm the leader in my own fantasy, and you know what, Tappy Lady, she doesn't get a bit. And that's that part of me. It's cruel. It always thinks about people being below or above me, never even. And I kind of hate that part of me, and right now I'm feeling a little lonely, and I miss you. And I'm staying in this Airbnb, and it doesn't have a television, but you know what, it has this. A garbage can with a remote control sensor, but you know what? The battery is dead. And the aggro parts of me wants to break it. It wants to break it wide open because it's not doing what I want. And that part of me wants to think that it's the center of the whole damn universe. And you know what happened the second day that I was here? The owner of this place sent me an email and he said, could I do him a favor? Because he was stuck in Miami and he'd lost his license. And could I find his passport for him? And he said to look in here, but he said that there's a whole bunch of different passports in there. So he sent me a photograph of himself so that I could find the right one. A whole bunch of different passports? What the hell is that? And suddenly I felt like I was in the Bourne Identity, except I wasn't Jason Bourne, and you don't want to be anyone but Jason Bourne in the Bourne Identity. I'm not Jason Bourne. I'm like an extra who's lying in bed when the hero crashes through the window, and I pull the covers up like this, and I go, ah! And this part of me says, fuck you if you don't think that I'm not a hero. Fuck you if you don't think that I didn't scout out every inch of this room. But I didn't. I didn't memorize the license plates outside. But I know where the Doritos are, and I know where the soy milk is. That side of me is a joke. You can have him. And now Stefan Bucher will solve one of your problems.
Crystal Lenore writes, Stefan, I have a co-worker who's giving me a lot of unwanted attention. I think he might be interested in me romantically. How do I let him know that I'm not interested without it being awkward in the workplace later, especially if it turns out my suspicions are wrong? Well, you need to create some mental barriers for this guy. Barriers that don't require you to say anything or put him at risk of embarrassment. I suggest you create a little bank of staged photos for your desk that show you're not just unavailable, but that approaching you carries risk of injury. Start with a photo of you posing with your huge angry bodybuilder boyfriend. Maybe you're both wearing brass knuckles. Frame a photo of a snarling attack dog. Maybe add a shot of you in archery class. That should do the trick. Problem solved? I hope so.